Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Let me welcome you at our FP&A circle. That's a place where we share best practices in financial planning and analysis. My name is Olga Rudakova. I'm a FP&A trends facilitator, and our today's topic is AI in FP&A, change management for navigating complex challenges. And that topic has attracted almost 400 registrations. So I'm really happy that we have so many participants today. Let me start by looking at our agenda for the event. We'll speak about how AI will transform FP&A in 2025. We will look at two case studies from Novartis and Roche. So we will speak about navigating the human change, AI on financial planning and budgeting. We will look at Roche digital finance, AI and FP&A developing meaningful use cases. We'll speak about greater efficiency and accuracy for data management. Certainly we'll have conclusions, recommendations, and Q&A session at the end. So you can already start sending your questions to our panelists through the chat box. Please do so. Meanwhile, let me introduce our panel for this event. Please join me on the camera and I will start our introductions with you, Enrique. Enrique Rodriguez is ex-finance director for corporate procurement at Walgreens Boots Alliance. Enrique is a multilingual finance director and business leader with over 15 years of experience. He was heading departments of finance with up to 40 professionals. Enrique, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Olga, for this fantastic invitation. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be part of the FP&A Trends Group, FP&A Circle, and such a global think tank, and very happy and honored to be here. Thank you.
And we are always happy to have you back, Enrique. Our second speaker today will be Ronald Forster. Ronald is a head FP&A technical research and development at Novartis. Ronald has broad experience in FMCG and pharma in country, region, and global roles. Ronald, we are excited to have you on the panel. You're on mute, but we are pretty sure you're glad to see us as well.
Sorry about that. No, I was just saying thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here, and I look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you for joining. And let me introduce our third speaker for today. It's David Dubovsky. David is digital lead for Finance Enterprise Center of Excellence at Genentech Roche. David is leveraging over 20 years of experience in business intelligence and financial performance management. He dedicated the past 15 years to advancing finance in the pharmaceutical and biotechnology sector. David, welcome to the discussion.
Thanks for having me, Olga, and excited to participate in this panel with some of these colleagues. And this is a passionate area for me, so hopefully it's helpful for everyone on the call.
And the fourth participant will be Rob Konferowitz. Rob is Director of Operations at Wolters Kluwer CCH Tagetik. Rob helps large enterprises make appropriate long-term strategic decisions on CPM solutions during their software evaluation cycles. Rob, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, Olga, and yeah, very happy to be part of such a great community and excited for this topic. So thank you very much.
Right, and after the introductions, let me first of all thank our global sponsor, CCH Tagetik. CCH Tagetik embrace the future of finance with AI-based corporate performance management software. After that, I would like to present our international FP&A board, which is actually present in 33 cities in 19 countries. So you can see on the map some more impressive numbers. Let's say we had 260 board meetings face-to-face so far, and we had 167 webinars till now, and we are participating in another one altogether. What we can expect from this session. It is 90 minutes event and it's highly packed with all different activities. We will have 3 interactive polls on the webinar subject. Please participate. Your opinion matters here. We have Q&A session, so you can already send your questions to our participants via the chat. Networking, you can definitely connect with our speakers through LinkedIn after the event or just right now. Presentation is already available in handouts section here, and you will receive the presentation and recording of the event after this event within 2 days. More than that, before you leave, at the very end, please take part in a brief survey. It takes literally 1-2 minutes, but it helps us improve and make every session even better than before. Let me start by presenting some statistics from our FP&A trends survey. Let me start with a quite positive number. 65% of organizations that use AI or ML in their forecasting rate their forecasts as great or good, which is actually much more than 40% quoted by AI ML non-users. That's a huge uplift. So definitely AI makes our forecasts better. On the other hand, that's quite upsetting statistics of AI adoption. Only 6% of organizations use AI or machine learning in their forecasting. And actually, it's downward trend since 2021. More than that. It looks like our plans to use artificial intelligence in forecasting don't materialize. If you look at the last year's 2023, 12% of organizations planned to use AI in the next 6 months, but it's not happening. 2024 numbers don't really show these 12%. So what's happening there? Apparently, despite all the benefits of artificial intelligence, there are some blocks on the way. And that's something we will discuss today. What stops us from effectively adopting AI in FP&A? And we will cover that from 4 different angles. We will speak about culture, we will speak about people, data, and technology. Every presentation today will be devoted to one of these facets, but not entirely. You will see that all these aspects are connected and our speakers will cover all of them. So let's start by our first presentation. Enrique Rodriguez will be speaking about how AI will transform FP&A in 2025. Enrique, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Olga. And again, I appreciate very much the introduction. And it's fascinating to see all the data based on the global audience from the FP&A Trends Group and Circle. Definitely implementation or adoption is something that it's in everybody's mind, especially within the finance function. So what I'm trying to do for today in this very few minutes and talk about overall what are the ones that we believe are the latest or going to be the latest development overall in trends in 2025, how transformative impact AI is going to have within the FP&A function overall, going over a little bit of the statistics, challenges, and barrier that I see US and ex-US, and last but not least, navigating a little bit of change management as a critical success factors for implementation overall. Switching over, starting off with the AI developments and trends in 2025. I wanted to preface this discussion or this presentation, letting everybody know that, of course, given the fast-paced environment and the fast-paced development of everything that has been going on regarding AI, these were the trends that I was able to encounter based on several sources of information out there. But even just recently, what we have seen within the US, the upcoming US administration implementing actually a so-called Project Stargate, $500 billion of investment in data centers and so on, the major players involved. So that is also, we foresee that is going to be changing the nature as well of what potentially going to be a new trend in 2025, the expansion itself, capital investments in this field. But overall, starting with the agentic AI, which takes the center stage, as you know, AI agents have been evolving beyond just the simple task to handle complex now and real-time operations. The so-called agents or AI agent itself, they are targeting autonomous decision-making and problem-solving capabilities. And overall, in terms of AI agents in finance, what we have seen is that the agents out there can actually coordinate multiple activities simultaneously, optimizing process actually in real time. Switching over to another trend that we foresee in 2025 is the advanced reasoning and memory capabilities. Now AI models are targeting to improve actually logical reasoning and contextual understanding. There's going to be an enhanced ability also to solve complex problems in fields like, including finance, of course, but law and sciences and life sciences specifically. I don't think that we have even seen or starting to grasp the vast field and applicability of any generative AI in the fields of life sciences and healthcare. Overall, this advanced reasoning and memory capabilities also is going to be allowing for better retention of context in long-term interactions. Switching over to another trend that we are foreseeing, multimodal AI integration. What this means is that the AI systems is going to process and analyze data from multiple sources. We have seen already some glimpses. There's a little bit of competition between multiple sources, analyzing sources from text, image, audio, and video. And I've seen a lot of videos out there comparing who's best and who's not so great in order to do that and doing this activity very pristine. This capability is going to be enable more intuitive interactions, and it's going to be improving accuracy of any AI inputs. Switching over to the hyper automation that is expected to drive efficiency. The combination of AI, machine learning, and robotic process automation is another trend that we're expecting. The streamlining of complex business processes and decision making. And ultimately, it's all about cost efficiency. It's financial services, banks, and so on are expected to save billions of dollars by the end of 2025. Just by the pure implementation of these hyper automation efficiency models. And also very important, the democratization of AI, the fact that you don't need to be a coder anymore to be able to build your own generative AI or a multimodal language model, putting together that gives you the perspective of expanding the access for FP&A professionals, but for the finance professional overall. AI ethics and regulation there's going to be an increased focus specifically on transparency, bias reduction, and ethical AI usage. There's a debate between what the US is going to be doing now moving forward versus what is not going to be doing. And last but not least, AI-driven collaboration. So switching over now to the next step here, we want to understand what are the key transformations that we're expecting in 2025. First, AI-driven planning and forecasting, as we have probably experienced within our realm of the finance and FP&A function. AI and predictive analytics are going to be transforming forecast accuracy, enhancing that forecast accuracy, automating routine tasks to allow focus on strategic decision making. Integrated corporate planning is another one of those key transformations that we're expecting. AI is going to be enabling holistic planning across financial, operational, and strategic goals, improving alignment and short-term objectives, enhancing resource allocation and performance tracking. Something that probably isn't very near and dear to myself specifically, the self-service FP&A analytics. You're actually going to be able to give the ball to our business stakeholders, internal stakeholders, in order for them to be empowered specifically to generate real-time reports, custom analytics, and reducing ultimately the reliance on IT for data access and analysis. Another of those transformations that we're expecting is AI-powered risk management, advanced analytics for identifying and mitigating financial risk, real-time monitoring, and all in all, enhancing decision-making in this volatile market conditions. And last but not least, the natural language processing and financial reporting is important as well, given that these AI-driven tools that are going to be transforming the function are going to be enhancing again the level of complexity of the data that they can analyze more efficiently, more effectively, less time consuming, most cost effectively as well. So these are the key transformations that we're foreseeing and we're expecting. We're going to switch very quickly to AI adoption in the finance. When we decompose US versus global, overall in the US, the adoption rate that we have seen varies based on several sources. I think bottom line is adoption rate in the US is higher versus outside of the US. And there are certain levels of indication that lets us know why it's coming like that. Ultimately, the barriers in the US is legacy systems. There's some gaps in terms of skills, and there's high concerns over data security. All in all, in the outside of the US, and it's very difficult to actually just extrapolate anything outside the US because there's a level of complexities behind each and every one of the regions outside the US. But ultimately, bottom line or high level, there's a higher uptake in APAC and Europe due to potentially government support and innovative ecosystems. The challenges continue to be, in most of the cases, the regulatory complexities and the lack of infrastructure in emerging markets. Key factors for success: leadership commitment to digital transformation, investment in training and upskilling, and partnering as well with the AI technology providers for seamless integration. And switching over to the last slide now is, I think it's important to point out, what do we believe are the key strategies to navigate a successful AI implementation? Ultimately, cultural readiness, cultivating a mindset of agility and innovation within the FP&A teams, leadership alignment as well, ensuring that you engage executives to champion AI-driven initiatives, lead by example, all in all. A stakeholder engagement, needless to say that it's important to make sure that anybody within the enterprise are completely engaged in this journey, making sure that you communicate the value of AI clearly to gain early enough buy-in in any type of implementation. Training and upscaling continues to be very important, equipping teams with AI literacy and technical proficiency. It's important that you actually, as a leader, implement some sort of a growth mindset mentality within your teams in order for them to be able to develop themselves as well and be part of this transformational journeys. Incremental deployment itself, try to begin with pilot projects to demonstrate value. And all in all, it's important to have a continuous feedback to monitor, iterate, and improve any type of AI implementation. And I'm just going to end up with saying that AI, as we know, is going to be reshaping completely the FP&A function, offering unprecedented opportunities to efficient. But the successful adoption requires a holistic approach, technology, people, and processes. And ultimately, the future of FP&A continues to be data-driven, automated, and strategically focused. Thank you.
Thank you, Enrique, for sharing your presentation. And I'm actually very happy that we started with culture aspect. That's indeed like an umbrella covering all the topics. And we will elaborate on some of the points you're mentioning here on your last slide later in upcoming presentations. If you have any questions to Enrique, you can ask them right now through our chat box. So don't hesitate. We, by the way, are already getting some good questions. So thank you for that. Meanwhile, let me ask you a question. What's coming next is our polling question number 1. So how does your organization view AI in finance? And let me launch this poll so that you all can vote. So what are the options? Do we see AI as essential for growth, or a nice to have tool, or maybe just an unnecessary complexity, or a potentially risky thing? So let's see how people in our audience view AI in finance. I'm personally very curious to see the answers. We tried to guess the winner with our panelists, so let's see if we were close to the right answer. And actually, 60% of you have already voted. You are voting so fast. Amazing. Let me end this poll and share the results with everyone. So what do we see here? Almost equal results for the first two options. A nice to have tool or essential for growth. Maybe that's why you're here at this webinar. 7% of you believe that it's unnecessary complexity, and 14% that it is a potentially risky tool. Enrique, what do you think? Are you surprised at all?
I'm not surprised at all. I do see that as we can see, there's a completely a diametrical opposition in terms of the responses. So ultimately, I think it's important for us to have this type of conversations. The more the conversations that we have as leaders, the better, in order to get on and try to vanquish any type of, I would say, questions or concerns about AI implementation.
Right, right. Thank you for this comment. And we are moving on. I would like to discuss a related question with you. So the question I'm going to ask all of our participants to answer is, what are the most common cultural misconceptions about AI and finance, and how can they be addressed? So let me start with you, Ronald. What do you think? What are the most common misconceptions here?
Well, I think one is that it's AI taking over jobs, and we become obsolete. And I think whenever we have those reflections, we need to think back on other technological advances that have changed the way we work in finance. And the word being, it has changed the way we work. It hasn't replaced. Some of you here might have been involved in early systems transformations in the last 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 years. I remember starting my career and hearing stories about the dinosaurs in finance who, when they started, were printing budgets and putting notebooks together and going to the post office to send it to the global offices. So things have changed, but the work still needs to be done, right? So these are tools that help us. We need to embrace them and be in control rather than be afraid of them.
Right. Thank you for this answer, Ronald. I'm moving to you, David. What do you think? What are the most common cultural misconceptions and how they can be addressed?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Ronald, for dating me with that reference to how we used to do forecasting. I think for me, the other thing, so +1 to that one, I think it's also that AI is for someone else to solve for us. So we in finance think maybe it's data scientists in the background, or it's an IT organization that's going to bring this in for our organization. The reality is that it belongs within finance as well. We need to embrace low code, no code opportunities, technologies that are available, understand our data. And so don't expect someone else to bring it for you, but think about how you can jump into this opportunity and embrace what AI can bring for us. So that'd be my other misconception, that it wait for someone else to bring it for you.
Right, right. Rob, what do you think? What are the most common misconceptions and how can they be addressed?
Yeah. I mean, besides what Ronald and David kind of addressed already, but something I hear and kind of view as like a misconception talking to many finance organizations out there is this whole concept that AI is like this big enigma, right? Or it's just maybe a binary kind of concept where we're an organization that's uh, got the check mark for AI or we don't. And I like to kind of peel back that onion a little bit because I think there's many very specific use cases where we can apply AI and embed that into our finance and planning and analysis workflow without necessarily having to maybe go through a big bang, 5-year approach for a transformation. So there are incremental wins that we can leverage that, believe it or not, AI can also help us adopt more AI in our organization. So I like to view it as maybe incremental gains rather than maybe just this one big bang approach.
Right, I will remember this phrase, AI can help us adopt more AI. And let me move it back to you, Enrique. What do you think? What are the most common misconceptions and how we can address them?
Yes, I would only add that probably I wanted to add the corporate culture misconception that AI has, that ultimately, as soon as you embark in this transformation, that you're no longer protective of your company or your enterprise data. That's one of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen, and probably one of the major drivers why the adoption overall it's so low in general terms. There are ways, and I would encourage us to think outside the box as finance professionals, try to lead the charge, because there are specific ways in order to guarantee that the data continues to be protected within the enterprise environment.
Right. Thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying that. And it allows us to move on to the next chapter in our discussion, to the next presentation, which will be focused on people, but not only people. So let me pass the word to Ronald Forster, who will be covering navigating the human change, AI on financial planning and budgeting. Ronald, let me pass this control to you, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Olga. And I wanted to preempt this a little bit by saying where this is coming from. So the inspiration behind what I'll share over the next few minutes comes from the experience in Novartis. Novartis being a pharmaceutical company with the purpose of reimagining medicine to improve and extend people's lives. It's a large organization, so circa 80,000 employees, and more importantly, 284 million or so patients reached. The reason I'm bringing this up is so that you have the right context on why this journey has been the way it has been. It may apply differently for organizations that are smaller or mid-size, but I think there are some lessons to be learned that apply universally. And back to a point that was, part of our poll is AI essential or is it a nice to have? And I think as the company thought about AI and financial planning, really it was important first to crystallize what the problem statement was, which in this case was, well, how might we improve budgeting, speed and agility while minimizing human bias, right? The starting point was not, here's this great AI, how do we force it through the budgeting and planning processes? It's, this is the problem we're trying to solve, and well, let's explore some opportunities and some options. Essentially, let's not put the cart before the horse, but it should be the other way around. Important to keep in mind, AI is not the solve all for everything. Think about what the problem is, and then look for solutions that might be AI enabled. Now, again, as we think about pros and cons of AI, I'm not going to go through the list, especially not the pros. I think you might recognize some of your own thoughts there, and for sure, if we spend a half hour here, the list will be endless. But among the typical cons, we think about the risk of the unknown with AI. We think about implementation cost. It's very difficult to quantify the return on the investment because it's new territory. There are data quality gaps, and we'll talk about that later on today as well. There are skill gaps. We simply don't understand it. There's the question of accountability. What happens if AI goes in one direction? Am I still in charge or not? And resistance to change, which is universal with any kind of data or technology revolution. So I wanted to address a little bit what some of the roadblocks are, and some of them are relatively simple. As we think about investment, as we think about uncertainty, it's important to set a clear vision and to think really big. How far can we go? What does it mean to be AI enabled for budgeting? What does it really mean to be hands off? It's not kind of hands on. No, it's really hands off, right? If that's where we want to go, then let's plot a path towards that bigger vision, and let's bring people together on that one. You do need to set the tone from the top. I think the experience in the company was such that once there was this kind of globally led and globally embraced approach to changing the way to do things, then it got a lot more traction rather than a silo from one country saying, well, we've got a few smart people here trying a novel approach. That will have limitations, especially to adaptability across a large organization. And again, coming back to what is the problem you're trying to solve, and focus on solving that problem rather than pushing through a technology for trying to fix something that isn't broken or isn't broken yet. Second, you do need to resource appropriately, and this means getting your data quality right, putting people behind a data governance strategy, execute on your data governance strategy, making it a priority. Resource a specific team for it. It's not a hobby. It's actually somebody's job, right? To get involved with data quality and governance. Commit to the investment fully, and this by no means implies finding the most expensive, fanciest third-party supplier. This means plotting out a journey and a multi-year plan and ensuring you follow through with the people dedicated to it, with the funding dedicated to it, and understanding that you will hit snags along the way. And so how do you learn from that and go back to reassess how you keep going forward? But commit rather than simply backing out at the first sign of difficulty. And you do need to ensure you upskill your organization. It doesn't mean everyone becomes an AI expert, but it certainly helps if people are comfortable with discussing the terms of the new technology and new concepts. Now, the last one and the toughest one is probably accountability and resistance to change. But these are strictly human problems, right? And so, just want to tell you a story about how this progressed in the company. And it's kept intentionally vague because I hope that you might find this a bit as a template to how you might think about implementing this in your organization. I talk about year zero, pre-year zero, and a 3-year journey. You might think about this as much faster or much slower. It depends on the speed at which your organization is able to adopt change. But if we think about the before year zero, we're talking about a very manual budgeting and financial planning process, lots of back and forth, meetings, discussions, debate. And out of all that process, the resulting budget becomes a kind of contract for the new year, right? You shake hands, global with regions with countries, and that becomes the bar against which your performance that year is measured. So we did in year zero was essentially pilot AI across the entire company, not for one single market, but on a macro level to better educate ourselves with what are the models that work, what is the approach that actually is more predictive, how do we back test, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of training, learning, and testing. And it triggered a lot of thinking about what that data governance strategy needed to be. In year one, you're able to then pilot this fully for one single market and say for that market, whatever the AI results is in terms of a budget or a plan becomes the contract for the year. And you socialize and communicate what those learnings have been so that in year two, you already apply the AI for the entire company, understanding that there are probably still parallel processes happening. But in year three, those parallel processes go away. And the important thing is that throughout year one, year two, year three, what is evolving is that the AI budget becomes that contract. I'm going to pick on David and Enrique, if you can come on screen again, just to kind of set the example, if you will. Let's imagine David is the CFO for one of the markets, and Enrique is the global CFO. So in yesterday's world, David manually prepares a budget and he pulls together his numbers. He has a lot of internal meetings. He presents something to Enrique, and Enrique is not necessarily happy because David has presented a plan that he is confident he can deliver on, and he is comfortable with the level of risk. Enrique is not as close to the country. He doesn't see all the downsides and all the threats, and he can manage his risk across a portfolio of markets. So he goes back and says, well, David, actually, I think you can lift your forecast. And this discussion goes back and forth multiple times until they shake hands and say, okay, this is the budget for the following year. David does a good job, and he gets his bonus or his performance assessed based on that contract. Now, in the new world with AI, Enrique gets something that AI is telling him that David should deliver. David is not going to be very happy at being on the hook to deliver something that he didn't have a part in preparing. So what needs to change here is to shift our mindset from David's time should be most or best invested in developing business plans to materialize the upsides of all the different scenarios rather than endless calculation of value, right? Value creation rather than value calculation. And David might still be uncomfortable with committing to a budget that is based on a machine. And so what helps is that Enrique, it's not that he lets David off the hook, but he reassesses what the KPIs are in order to ensure that his performance and that of his team is assessed based on KPIs that are more operational, things he can control, and that together between Enrique and David, they're sharing the accountability over the ultimate business results, and they're sharing that across the entire company because KPIs are aligned across the entire company. And so one of the things that made a big difference was to align enterprise objectives, bonus factors based on total company performance rather than country A, country B, country C. Adjusting KPIs to what is relevant that the business team can deliver, and build the trust over time. So in this case, let's assume David agreed and Enrique agreed to this AI-enabled budget, but David did not deliver on that at the end of the year because there were extraordinary circumstances in the market that were completely out of his control. If Enrique now punishes David for that, it completely destroys the trust in this new process and in the AI approach. But if Enrique acknowledges that certain things are out of control, but as a whole company, the actions that were taken were the right things, and David still has the trust and has the back of his global counterparts, then you have a chance of success in year 2 and year 3 with a more hands-off approach to budgeting, so that again, David, Enrique, and everyone like them can focus their time more on value creation rather than value calculation. Because in the end, it's all about people, and how you build that trust and how you focus your energy is what is most likely to deliver value creation over the future. AI, again, is a huge enabler, but it's not a replacer. Olga, back to you.
Thank you so much, Ronald, for your presentation. Value creation rather than value calculation. That's something else for us to remember from your presentation. And thank you for this vivid example with Enrique and David. So I'm pretty sure that we all remember that as well. Meanwhile, I'll start another poll on a related topic, and I'm very curious to see what our audience thinks about that. So what is the biggest challenges in AI adoption from your point of view? Let me launch this one and see what are the options. Is it data quality issues, lack of skill training, accountability blur, or resistance to change? 4 options, 4 different angles. What is the biggest challenge in AI adoption for you? Data quality issues, lack of skill training, accountability blur, or resistance to change. Let's wait for more people to vote, but it looks like absolute majority has voted already. So let me end this poll and let me share the results with everyone. Absolute winner here, data quality issues. Another big portion of your votes goes to lack of skill training, indeed. Third place, 20%, goes to resistance to change, and remaining 10% go to accountability blur. Ronald, what do you think? Are you surprised at all by the poll result?
Not surprised at all. We've had some of these discussions, and we, I think, have acknowledged what some of the hurdles are. I don't agree, but that shouldn't be surprising as I'm talking about resistance to change. I think data quality issues and lack of skills and things like that can be addressed if there is a will, right? These are just problems to solve. They take time, they take finding the right people. But if there's no will to change, then as an organization, you don't even get started at resourcing your data governance team or things like that. So to me, it's critical that we embrace the change, embrace the new technology, embrace the direction in which this is going. And then the rest is, sounds simple, but it's just little problems that we have to solve along the way.
Understood. Thank you for that comment. And we are receiving many questions, and many of them relate to data quality and data governance. It looks like that's definitely one of big questions on the table right now. So let's discuss that a bit, and let's discuss resistance to change as well. So let's now answer the question: how can CFOs support employees in overcoming resistance to AI-driven decision making? And let me start with you, David, here. What do you think? How you as a CFO can support employees in that?
Yeah, there's such a long list. I would go first with explaining the why and role modeling what that means for the organization, right? If we invest our time in all these AI-driven forecasts and opportunities, and the CFO doesn't embrace it, to Ronald's example earlier, if you don't think about how you integrate it, then it kind of falls into the system. And so just role modeling that this is something we commit to transform our organization is one of the more important things for me.
Mhm. Right, let me pass that to you, Rob. What do you think? How can CFOs support employees in overcoming that resistance to change?
Yeah, so again, many things come to mind. Maybe more coming from the technology angle. I'm a big believer of also enabling, your finance team, your finance organization to leverage modern technology that should show or kind of put the proof in the pudding that this approach, when done right, works. Because I think you can do all the training, the enablement, grow some skills. Sometimes there's still going to be a little bit of resistance, but I think as you go through your forecast cycles and you start to see a little bit better accuracy, more agility, and actually see some strong results, that to me is the best way. Of course, the big caveat is going through a successful transformation, which is, of course, not always easy.
Right, right. Thank you for this technology angle. And let me pass the word to Enrique. What do you think? How can CFOs support employees in overcoming resistance to that change?
Yeah, this is a fantastic topic, of course. I want to echo what David mentioned earlier about all in all leaving by example. And not only that, but making sure that you're demonstrating the value within the rest of the enterprise. Truly uh, try to be vocal about the why, not just keep that within the finance function, but actually just expand it. I mean, try to work with your critical internal stakeholders and let them know why you're pursuing this as a potential solution and what's the answer to the what's in it for me type of question in terms of value, time, decision making process, and the business partnering support that we should be expected to enhance by minimizing the amount of time that you're spending as a finance professional on the blocking and tackling, but purely more on the strategic sense of all those type of decision making processes.
Right, right. Thank you for that answer. And I'm passing it back to you, Ronald. You have answered this question partially through your presentation, but still, if you have something to add, how you as a CFO can support employees here?
I think one of the approaches is also to paint a picture of what the future can be like, and in freeing up a lot of time and focus and energy from financial planning, finance professionals have more and more become business partners and business development professionals, and I think it makes for a much more enriching career as well. Especially if you know that any machine can do what you used to do. Great, then I can do something else. That's fantastic. So there is a point there in selling the idea that we can become much more well-rounded business professionals rather than finance siloed professionals.
Amazing. Thank you all for your answers to this question. That was indeed motivational for all of us listening. And let's move on to the third presentation, focused but not only on data. So let's look at David Dubovsky's presentation, Roche case study, Roche Digital Finance, AI and FP&A, developing meaningful use cases. David, let me pass the control to you, and the stage is yours.
All right, thank you, Olga. So hi everyone, good to be here. Similar to Ronald, work for a large pharmaceutical and diagnostics company, Roche, based here in the US. Actually, I work for Genentech, the regional affiliate here. Roche has been around for 128 plus years, serving patients in unmet needs. And I give you that context as well, similar to Ronald, because in that large pharmaceutical space, especially, which is where I'll be focusing on the use case, it's important to understand what resources you may have available, but also some of the challenges with large volumes of data, how we think about the diversity of the affiliates we support, as well as the patients that we aim to serve. The other thing just to call out here is, as an innovation-driven medicines company, all our stakeholders beyond finance are focused on data, science-driven decision-making. And so that becomes important when we as finance show up with our business with predictive models or scenarios or options. And that is a big part of how you think about the culture at your company and how to embrace AI. So with that, I want to just share quickly some context on how we think about in finance in our organization, picking the right use case. Because as Enrique shared and as Arnold has touched on as well, the ability to drive, there's lots of great use cases out there. I think we all know how we can think about sales forecasting and operating expenses and cash and anything around what we do. But picking the right use cases that are going to be most likely adopted and bring value into the organization is important. And we think of it in three ways. The first is, can we make our finance organization and our colleagues more productive? So how do we think about AI and transforming agents and chatbots and things that just make it easier to get to data and solve day-to-day problems? The second, which is where we spend a lot of our time and where most people think of for AI, especially when it comes to financial data, is in the insight and prediction space. And that's actually where I'll share a use case in a few minutes around sales prediction in this case. But how do we think about leveraging machine learning models to supplement what we do in finance? And then the third, which is maybe a little less thought of, but super important, is I would say the back office, the operational side of AI. So you can create a significant amount of value and savings and opportunities by integrating AI into your processes, whether that's contract generation, invoicing, payment management, things like that. So don't forget a lot of people consider it behind the scenes side of AI. And we look at all three of those and we think about, how can we democratize that into the organization? Can we upskill our people to actually implement these tools? Can we scale them? And can we actually drive adoption and the right level of awareness to integrate it into our process? Because it's great to have a use case or an idea around AI, but if you cannot embed it in how you work day to day, it's just something you're going to be rolling out that isn't really used, and people will go back to Excel files or Google Sheets or whatever it is that you use locally. So with that, I want to just give you an example of a project that we rolled out actually a few years ago. And this one is one that we continue to evolve over time. So first, let me just set the objective. This is around so again, on the pharmaceutical side of the Roche organization, we deliver daily sales information to all our affiliates. And we do that, in an automated way. But over time, we've been able to scale this and think about, if we look at daily sales, there's various factors that go into why things may change day to day, and how it serves our forecast for the year, or the half year, or whatever it is that we're trying to deliver to our leadership and our stakeholders internally and externally. The first thing to call out here is all this information that these models provide are an additional data point. They're supplementary to what we know about our business, how we think about what we've already put into our forecast, the local market dynamics. There's a famous statistician that said all models are wrong, but some are useful. And I think that's an important factor to take into account here, because you can build the most complex model, but there's so many variables that go into what we bring, what happens in your business, in the market, political, environmental, social, company-wise, that you have to bring a component to understand what's happening. So that's an important factor to keep in mind. In this example, we've actually got 11 combined statistical models that go into this, and we applied different models based on regions, products, taking into account those various variables as well. And then over time, we've been able to, again, refine it, scale it. This is not a deliver and leave it out there. You need to continue to think about what's changing in your business, what's changing in your company, what's changing externally, and continue to think about, does that model still serve what we need? I'm going to just share 2 quick examples to highlight what this looks like, but I want to call out the data side of it because this is where I think it's important to think about. A model is only as useful as the data we provide. In this case, both are daily sales information at day 18. The first example is for a large affiliate of ours. And in this case, we know from historical data that certain days of the week bring more sales than others. So Mondays are typically fairly low, Wednesdays and Thursdays are higher sales numbers. If you didn't have that information and you were just building kind of traditional trend models, you would extrapolate the wrong potential forecast for here. So in this case, in this affiliate, when we roll out the models, we apply that known information around the market dynamics. In the second example, we have here, sorry, let me go back. We have an example of, go back to, sorry, Olga, can we go back a slide? Okay, in the second example, it's a smaller affiliate with a lot more variability. The thing to call out in this one is if you look at the last day of the month, when we're predicting the last working day, you'll actually see here a decline in sales, which is kind of not really expected. We assume sales, when you're looking at month to date, would always go up. But we know that in this region and in some similar regions that we do accruals at the end of the month to account for certain variability in the market and how we manage payers and providers. And so we actually have a slightly negative number on that day because of the historical data we have. Again, if the model didn't anticipate that, or if we didn't bring in that human knowledge around it, the model would extrapolate additional sales that month on that last day, and we would not be providing our leadership with the right information. So it's really important that we understand the data and we understand the market and the business that we support. We cannot expect to roll out an AI solution and assume that it's just going to replace the human factor behind it. So those are 2 examples within that. And then just maybe to double click into the data side, you can have all these great ideas around AI, but we spend a lot of time in our team really building a strong data foundation. In our case, we operate a federated data mesh approach. We don't have to get into the technologies, but we have all this data sitting in our finance tools, the ERPs, our CRM systems, external data. But if it's just sitting there scattered, it's not super useful. So we spend a lot of time on the left-hand side of this slide thinking about how do we take that data, how do we sort it and organize it, how do we arrange it in a way that it becomes meaningful through what we call data products to serve various needs. And that could be standard reporting, or in this case, we think about how can we put AI on top of it and really serve our business effectively. Very often we jump from the right-hand side and think about, oh, I have a really good idea around sales forecasting, operating expenses forecasting, but we get lost because we don't have the right level of data to serve it. So I'll close out maybe with just some lessons learned when we think about use cases, and Ronald talked about some of this as well. Invest your time early on making sure you have high quality data and that it's easy to access, whether it's for your data scientists, for your finance teams, for your business. It's important that you think about how you're going to embed AI into your processes. So it cannot just be, here's a solution, but go ahead and still do your 3, 4, or 5 month bottoms up forecast, because then people will not leverage the functionality that you're bringing them. We talked earlier around whether it's from a CFO perspective or just in general, communicate the value of what this brings, because people have anxiety when it comes to AI. How do we relieve that anxiety and say, this is a supplementary tool to what you do, and we aim to make your life easier, better, more effective in how you bring insights and scenarios to your business stakeholders. And then last, and I think we'll touch on this near the end as well of the panel, but think about the roles that need to exist in your organization, whether it's on the data side, in finance, in IT, et cetera. Think about what roles need to exist differently today than they did before. So those are just some lessons learned, hopefully helpful, and happy to continue the discussion later. I'll hand it back to you, Olga.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing your pieces of advice and for sharing the model that might be wrong, but is definitely useful. Let's move on. By the way, if you have any questions to David, that's the right time to ask them. And meanwhile, let me start another poll with all of you, and that relates to the percentage of effort in AI adoption we dedicate to data quality and data governance. So let me launch this one and see what do you think? What do you expect? Or maybe what you estimate based on your own experience? So, what percentage of effort in AI adoption is dedicated to data quality and data governance in your organization? Is it 20% or 40%? Maybe 60% or even 80%. So let's see, you can use your estimate or you can use your own experience to answer this question. I'll give you a bit more time to collect more votes. Is it 20, 40, 60, or 80% altogether? So let's see how you have voted in this poll. Let me end this one and share the results with everyone. The winner is 40% of effort goes to data governance and data quality, and 36% of respondents chose this answer. Another two almost equal options, 27 and 25%, go to 20 and 60. So yeah, we have normal distribution around 40%, and then we have 13% voting for 80% of effort. Let's see, are those 13% who already have AI adoption behind them or just in front of them? David, what do you think? Are you surprised by the results?
Not surprised. I think, when I look at this question, the first thing that comes to mind is, when we think about what's being done versus what could or should be done in AI, I think it probably should be more in the 80% when we think about if we really want to deliver a high value AI. But it's good to see that a large percentage is on this journey and recognizes that data becomes critical. I think I would say a lesson to take away is it probably should be on the higher end if you really want to drive high value solutions.
Right. Thank you for this comment, and thank you to everyone who took part in this poll. And let me move on to our last discussion for the evening. So, how do you overcome challenges related to data quality and governance in FP&A? And I will start this question with you, Rob. From your technology angle, what do you think? How we can overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think of course, technology, process, I think come to mind. But without getting too bogged down in the details, I think conceptually an approach that I've seen work quite well is a centralized approach, right, to data management in terms of having a repository, data lake, data mart for the office of the CFO, whatever you want to call it. So one master area to collect the data, however, with the flexibility to give the right data in the right view, in the right details to the right people at the right time. So having this concept of, scalability for vast amounts of data, because we're no longer just talking about trial balance data for forecasting purposes, of course, but still with enough flexibility to, again, adapt to localized models for individual business units. You saw some of the organizations and how detailed and iterative that process is. Different functions definitely want to kind of view their data a little bit differently, and I think it all starts first with that centralized approach to that data mart.
Right. Thank you, Rob, for that elaborate answer. I'll move on to you, Enrique. What do you think? How we can overcome challenges related to data quality and governance in FP&A? So, especially from our finance perspective.
I would say that I think it's important to allocate the enough resources for this particular topic. Oftentimes, what I have seen, at least in my experience, is that you get assigned as a finance professional to do a role of being the data governor, so to speak. And it's very difficult for you to concentrate the necessary amount of effort in order to focus on data governance. But ultimately, if you have I would say the wherewithal to allocate the necessary resources in order to have even a separate team or a separate resource in order to focus only on data quality and governance, and given that formality, I think you're off to a great start.
Right, right. Thank you for that. Ronald, what do you think? How we can
Well, I
overcome
have
that?
to echo what Enrique is saying. It needs to be a priority for an individual or a team rather than a hobby that is tagged on top of people's day-to-day jobs. It absolutely needs to be made a priority.
Right. And back to you, David. What you can add, how we can overcome challenges related to data quality.
Yeah, same. I think it's about the role definition, right? And so being clear on what roles need to exist that maybe didn't exist before, especially in finance, data stewards, data product owners, master data management. Those are not necessarily the sexy concepts that we think about, right? But if you don't have them and you don't have accountability on who's maintaining or scaling your data, you're investing a lot of money that in a few years is just going to provide, garbage in, garbage out kind of old world solutions. So.
Right, right. Thank you all for your answers. That's definitely an issue that bothering many of us. Thank you for clarifying it. And we are moving to the last presentation, technology angle here. And Rob Konferowitz will be speaking about greater efficiency and accuracy for data management. Rob, let me pass the control to you and the stage to you as well. It is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Olga, and thanks again for the great discussion so far. So we're gonna just dive a little bit, right into first an observation. So that last poll, I gotta agree with David. I was very surprised to see the 80% focus on data quality, data governance not be a little bit of a higher priority. Maybe it's related a little bit to my skewed view talking to organizations out there looking for technology to help with some of these problems, but almost every single organization I talk to on a daily basis has big challenges with data and data quality. But if we drill into that just a little bit deeper, when we talk about data issues, right, and data quality, probably the most prevalent conversation I'm having is this whole siloed view on data. Marketing has their optimization and campaign data. Sales has some of their opportunity level data. We've got R&D looking at project planning type data, and within each of these different functions, there's also probably 20 different alternate views on the same subset of data, oftentimes in very disparate sources of or our repositories, and oftentimes completely disjointed, right? So how do we kind of connect the dots? And this oftentimes kind of prevents organizations to really clearly see the big picture and how all of the interoperability between the data kind of flows together to, of course, to get to your bottom line if we're forecasting a P&L. Additionally, I think it also puts a little bit more stress and more focus on just a couple of the folks or a couple of the users or the finance professionals that might be able to kind of piece together some of the data and answer some of those more difficult questions. And extremely common, a lot of organizations are spending a tremendous amount of time just getting the data into a usable format, right? Or into a clean view, and way less time to actually use that data to drive insights. So if this is a little bit, the challenge, at least from our perspective, what we see, what's the next logical step? Certainly, a lot of the organizations that we talk to are looking at finance transformation tools, right? So yes, a planning tool or yes, a reporting tool, but I think the conversation has elevated quite a bit, at least in the last few years. So we're no longer talking about can you plan and model operating expenses, right, or workforce capital, but the conversation and the steps that CFOs are using right now is looking for areas where they can embed AI into that FP&A workflow, right? So it's not just to spit out a predictive forecast, but there's also use cases where we can actually start adopting AI to eventually get us to where I believe David had all the way on the right-hand side of his screen, but to be able to tell stories visually, right? Of course, be able to articulate outcomes and more importantly, to drive some of those insights and use that for decision making. So this is a little bit the journey that I'm hearing CFOs embarking on. And when we peel back that conversation a little bit, right, specifically about getting AI into our workflow and hopefully even using AI to help us adopt more AI, these are, I would say, 5 common buckets that different organizations are embarking on when it comes to embedding AI into their finance workflow. I won't go through all of the details, but they're really around, boosting your data governance with AI transaction matching. So in case we need to compare 2 different data sources with the same data, but we want to validate one to the other. There's AI auto mapping out there to also help with data collection, because I'm extremely cognizant of this kind of iterative cycle where getting data into a system is tough, but to leverage AI, we need even more data. So now it's going to be even more tough. But it's a good example where potentially technology can help us, and we can further go down with anomaly detection, right, to kind of boost that validation, and then get into some of the more fun, some of the more top of mind conversations around AI driver-based analysis to understand what's impacting my business, and of course the predictive side all the way on the right-hand side. So just to kind of show a little bit of technology in play, we've got a 1-minute video for AI driver-based analysis. So here, I think if we just play the video, should be maybe 60 seconds, just to give a sneak peek at what we can leverage and what it actually looks like for an end user to kind of navigate the system and actually embed AI directly into that workflow. So here, what we're seeing is an example of just standard process control, task flow, workflow, task assignments to different users. So, really centered around working on a forecasting, process. So pretty standard out there in terms of modern technology. But where this workflow then starts to go a little bit deeper is actually embedding AI driver-based analysis as a checkpoint before we submit our data. And there's a quick example of an accuracy dashboard. In summary, what it's actually showing us is a variance analysis over the last 60 periods or so, and showing us our forecast accuracy compared to how actuals came about. And more importantly, on the right-hand side, the system's identifying key variables from a high-level view. But what we can then do is actually drill a little bit more into the details and really see, for a forecast period by period analysis, the breakdown of what's driving our budget to actual or our forecast to actual variance for any given month based on the key drivers. And probably the biggest finding here, as the video wraps up, is that not all months are the same, right? So different drivers have material impacts on, different seasonality schedules. So then we're able to actually leverage that information, right? And actually, if we just go to the next slide here, we're able to leverage that information. And here's a quick example of a customer that actually embarked on that journey. I won't go through all of the details, but really where I want to highlight is on that outcomes section, because using that technology, this particular customer was actually able to identify 150 variables impacting their cash inflow forecasting process. However, after thorough analysis, they were actually able to identify and focus on 15 of those 150 variables that had a material impact. And it's not just then understanding those key drivers, but then embedding those 15 specific drivers and variables right back into their forecasting models, into their algorithms, and now embark on a journey where they're actually trying to anticipate change, downstream change in their forecasting outcomes based on upstream changes to those 15 key variables. And it's just a fascinating use case, in my opinion, on really truly leveraging data to drive a little bit more insight. Of course, obviously we're trying to support higher accuracy, see those influencers by period. So just a little summary. But above all else, I think it's a great example of how that finance organization was truly able to get to another level in productivity, very similar to the representation that we've had on the panel today. So I'll leave it at that for now, but hopefully it makes sense for everyone. And Olga, I'll probably pass it right back to you.
Thank you so much, Rob, for sharing your insights, for sharing your practical case study and speaking about business drivers. That discussion always is relevant for us FP&A professionals. Let us move on. And actually, the next section is my favorite section of all the event. It's your key takeaways. That's where I would like each of you to think about one idea, literally one sentence you would like us to remember from this event. If you can remember only one thing, what should that be? And let me start with you, Enrique. What do you think is a key idea from today's event?
Cultivate a growth mindset when it comes to AI. Um, there's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of hurdles that need to be done, addressed, and so on. But ultimately, you or us as leaders, especially within the finance function, we need to continue to cultivate that growth mindset, specifically when we're speaking about AI overall. That's my key takeaway.
Thank you for that. Ronald, what do you think? What is your key takeaway?
To think about AI as a huge enabler to pivot towards more value creation rather than value calculation. If calculation gets taken care of by somebody else and it's an AI, great. Then have fun with the value creation of the business.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you for that. David, what do you think? What is a key takeaway from you?
Yeah, I almost wish it wasn't called AI anymore. Like it's supplemental intelligence, not artificial, because it's actually using human knowledge to generate just additional opportunities. I think for me, it's about just data, data, data. Understand your data, and the rest will come.
Right. And Rob, what do you think? What is a key takeaway for you?
Yeah, I think being receptive to maybe look at your business and forecast your business potentially, even in different views than maybe your team hasn't necessarily thought of based on some of the outcomes of where technology can get us. So having that open mind on on an iterative journey to hopefully get to this kind of AI nirvana that I don't think necessarily exists, but it's a constant maybe North Star for these wonderful finance organizations to keep driving towards.
Right. Thank you all for your answers. We definitely have something to think about after this event, but we are not finishing yet. Another section which is waiting for us is Q&A, questions from the audience. I want to thank everyone who have been sending questions to us. We have received so many. Please don't be upset if your question won't be answered right now. We will be answering some questions in writing as well. Please wait for after event communication. But for now, let me start with you, Ronald. And I have many questions addressed to you. So I picked this one. Hi, Ronald. I think the budgeting process is good exercise to think through risks and opportunities in the business and find the right balance. If we rely on AI to develop the budget, don't we miss the opportunity to engage in various risks and opportunities conversations? To me, at the end of the day, there are always unexpected events that AI could not predict, such as COVID pandemic. So what do you think?
So you're not abdicating accountability or the planning process to the AI. You're using it as an enabler to draw out scenarios, right? I think if you look at finance 50, 100 years ago, there was one scenario and a lot of effort to calculate the output from that scenario. As we move to more automated options, if you think about the Excel sheets that many of us have used in our careers, you're able to model a few more things, right? What if, right? I think AI really unlocks that. And you need to be in charge. You're always in charge of understanding what are the assumptions that have gone into that AI, right? So a number of things can go right or can go wrong, a number of product launches, competitive activity, external factors, but you need to be in control of what it is that you're feeding into the AI model to then interpret what it is that it's telling you. And ultimately, we still own the outcome. We still own the output. Think about it a little bit as, how the driving experience has changed with all of these different GPS enabled mappers and route planners and things like that. You still have the final say, unless you have a driverless car, but you still have the final say as to what route you're going to take. And your accountability of saying, well, with the data that I had, it was apparently quicker to go that way, but I thought I knew better. right? And then maybe one day I trust the AI that is telling me actually there's a different route, and that experience tells me I can trust it or not. But you still have the final say. You just need to know what it is that you're feeding into the models, into the systems.
Right, right. Thank you for this explanation. And I'm moving to you, David, and I have as well many questions addressed to you. And actually, I'm surprised how attentively people listened. It's something that you have mentioned briefly, but people really want to know the details. David, can you please give us some examples of low code or no code opportunities in FP&A that you talked about?
Yeah. Well, I think we want to stay vendor agnostic, so I won't go into tools, but I think it's so much easier, even if you went into tools like R or Python, there's so many built-in scripts available to you in those tools. There's YouTube videos and things to do. There's technologies on the market that offer low code, no code opportunities. There's built-in capabilities in your ERPs, in your CRM vendors. Like, just look for it's probably already there. And so don't assume that you have to be a data scientist to fully understand it. At the same time, I will caveat you can also get yourself in trouble, and kind of you do need to engage with people who really understand the statistics and think about big data in the right ways. But it's about how you partner together. And so happy to talk offline and share things. But we use some specific technologies, but I think we want to stay kind of vendor agnostic here, that have given our people, talk about again, democratizing this opportunity, ways to get into it without having to be a Python coder or an R coder necessarily, right?
Right. Thank you for this answer. And all of you who want to continue the discussion, please connect to David through LinkedIn. That's our networking opportunities coming up here. And I have a question for Rob. We've been speaking about large enterprises a lot today. We have cases from large pharma companies. But here is a question that I would like to address to you, Rob. Is AI exclusively for medium to large organizations due to high investment requirements? Please tell us what you think.
Yeah, so I don't think of course, there's a market segmentation, right, for based on the size of an organization. I certainly think probably even you could have a small organization, and up to you how to define small based on annual revenue bands. But if they're in a high volume of data type of organization, they might be a better, use case to adopt AI than maybe an organization that's 3 times as big, but doesn't necessarily have the volumes of granularity or, the data size that smaller organization has. So again, almost like with the implementations, to me, it really starts with the data, to drive who can adopt, and take advantage of that.
Right, right. Thank you for this answer. And I have a question for you, Enrique. That's a bit long, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. So bear with me. AI eliminates repetitive tasks and lower level duties. AI can also replace the hands-on work of building models. This type of work tends to be performed by less experienced employees and can help such people learn and gain valuable work experience to progress in their careers. So it seems like AI can lead to talent, knowledge, skills gaps for companies, right? People don't have a place to learn. How do you think about this potential issue? What are early adopters seeing in this area?
I would say that early adopters that I have come across have seen that there are ways for you to upskill yourself as a professional without having to rely on what the enterprise is doing. David, I think I'd mentioned it at some point. There's a vast amount of resources out there that are free, reputable sources from think tanks to even universities that are actually offering free courses on all of this. And I would say that I would change it in the opposite way, saying that you don't have to rely on what the enterprise is telling you or giving you. that's why I rely on and emphasize one more time on growth mindset. It's all about how you approach and how you lead your own skilling journey, leveraging those resources and investing the right amount of time.
Right. Thank you for that. And thank you for shifting responsibility back to us. I think that's a fantastic answer. And I have a question to all of you. I will start here with you, David. Let me read it out loud, but I would like each one of you to answer. What new skills FP&A professionals need to effectively work alongside AI? And how can organizations upskill existing teams to leverage AI tools? So, David, what do you think? What skills do we need now?
Yeah, again, I think it comes to, and I wouldn't say like advanced statistics, but think about how with AI you're bringing, and here we're talking, I'll bring a lens of kind of the machine learning forecasting side of it, because AI is pretty broad, right? But if you're getting into that space and really want to unlock it, it's get some understanding of Bayesian models and regression models and things that you may already have some, but just understand what fit for purpose things make sense for the kind of data that you have or the problems you're trying to solve. And then when it comes to upskilling, just like Enrique said, the amount of vast content available, we have in our organization curated a lot of that. We have a digital finance academy that we developed in our company. Obviously, we have the resources to do that. And so how do we think about if you want to get deeper into automation or AI or visualization or data or even blockchain, we've developed and curated customized content and then kind of that practical learning opportunity as well. Because it's one thing to take a course. It's another to get your hands on it and actually play with it and think about it and pilot it yourself. And then when you think you have something, then you engage the rest of the organization to kind of think about how do I scale this better? Am I using the right kind of models and algorithms to implement it into my organization? So I would say just be curious and start looking and just playing around. And you'd be surprised at how low the bar is nowadays than you may think in this space.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Rob, I'm moving on to you. What skills do we need now to work alongside AI in finance?
Yes. So I'll go maybe with a little bit of a curveball here, and of course, I expect certainly a big portion of the audience to be on this journey, but I think that the business partnering, right, with the finance folks working with the folks in the business in the operation, so that concept of business partnering is probably a good prerequisite. So yes, you need the technical skill sets, right? You don't have to be a data scientist, but there's advantages to having the mathematical or statistical modeling, et cetera. But we find that finance folks that truly understand what drives their business before going down this AI journey makes things a lot easier. They can understand conceptually what's flowing. So when they see something on a screen using technology, it's a little bit more easy to grasp. So I would maybe go with the business partnering in case some folks aren't down that journey yet before getting to AI.
Right. Thank you for this angle. And I'm moving to you, Enrique. What do you think? Which skills we need now as FP&A professionals to work alongside AI?
I would say that two come to mind. First, the critical thinking skills are going to be absolutely paramount for us as finance professionals because the data is going to be there. We're going to have agents across the board to be able to sift through the data itself and present us the outcome, potential outcomes. So it's all about us having those critical thinking skills to be able to decipher and validate that outcome from our AI models or agents that are providing. So that's number one. And number two, it's all about going back to the business partnering, as Rob was mentioning, is those soft skills that you have to continue to develop and actually expand a bit more as a finance professional. Now that you have this brand new shiny tool in your tool belt, how do you continue to provide the value and partner with the business and stakeholders to truly demonstrate and demonstrate the value that you're bringing with this brand new tool?
Right. Thank you. And we have only one answer waiting for us here. Ronald, what do you think? Which skills do we need now to work alongside AI?
I think maybe more than a skill, an aptitude, a curiosity, right? And so have the curiosity to get into what it is that what are the outputs that you can obtain, um, and have a workman-like understanding of how these models and these systems work. Think about it a little bit like we're on horseback, and suddenly somebody has invented the car. Yeah. If you want to go out and see the world, you don't need to be a mechanic. You don't need to know exactly how everything in the car works. You need to know how you can drive it, and then that can take you anywhere. And I think with some of these models, it's a bit similar. You need to know how you can play with them in order to do scenario planning, in order to look at all your risks and ops and all of the different options that your business can go to. But you're in the driver's seat. So how do you take it into the direction? I think the spark for that will still be curiosity.
Right. Thank you for that, and thank you for another amazing metaphor, Ronald. That concludes our Q&A session for now. Please wait for after-event communication. We'll try to answer all the remaining questions in writing. Meanwhile, let me share a couple of more things with you. The first of all, I would like to invite you all to take part in our FP&A Trend Survey for the year 2025. It takes only 10 to 12 minutes to complete, and you will be among the first ones to receive the final report in July 2025. So we've used quite an interesting statistic from that at the beginning of this event. If you want to see an update, please fill in the survey. More than that, I would like to thank our sponsor, CCH Tagetik, for making this event possible for us. And I would like to invite all of you to connect to us, to FP&A Trends Global Community. There are multiple channels how you can do that. So please choose the one that works best for you. Before you leave, please fill in very short form after this event. It will help us improve and make the next event even better. Huge thank you to all the participants for being here with us, for sharing your case studies, for sharing your wisdom. And thank you to all of the attendees for joining us live today. Have a great day. Have a great rest of the week and see you at one of the upcoming events. Goodbye, everyone.